Today we're talking with Wall Street Journal bestselling author Dr. Cindy McGovern, whose latest book, Sell Yourself: How to Create, Live, and Sell a Powerful Personal Brand, which comes out September 27th. We're going to be talking about the latest TikTok trend that's kind of sweeping the nation that's called quiet quitting, and get her thoughts on it. Welcome, Dr. Cindy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So who exactly is being affected by this viral quiet quitting and quiet firing trend?
So the funny thing is the employee is being affected, as well as the employer, as well as the company. And I think that's the piece that people are missing is not only is it affecting the person that's choosing to quit or the leader that's choosing to fire, but it's reflecting on their brand overall and the legacy that they're leaving as an individual as well as an organization.
So how does quietly quitting affect someone's personal brand?
It has a huge impact on someone's personal brand because you're actually selling people on the fact that you've resigned without really resigning. And most likely you were doing differently at work before this. You were giving more, you were coming in early, you were staying late. And now you've given everyone around you whiplash because you haven't done that anymore, but you just didn't communicate it. So it really impacts your personal brand because now you're selling something you probably don't even recognize, which is you don't care. You're selling a brand of this doesn't matter to me. And that's the message you're sending to both your colleagues, your employers, and probably your clients.
And then on the flip side, how does quietly firing someone affect the brand of a leader?
So this is a huge thing that I coach leaders on all the time because you've got to have those very bold conversations with people. And I think it's very compassionate to let people know they're not stepping up to the challenge. They're not meeting the expectations that you have. And instead, quiet firing is just basically a garden retirement. You're putting them in a little box without really giving them an opportunity to climb their way out. And so I think it reflects on the leader as a bit of a cowardly move. And I think that they have to recognize that that is part of their leadership legacy. And do you want to be known as a bold leader who's compassionate and caring? The compassionate and caring thing to do in that moment would be to either coach them up or out.
And so what steps can employees take to rebrand their image after they've decided to engage in quietly quitting?
So if they have engaged in quiet quitting, one of the first things is, how did you do it? Did you make it incredibly public on social media and tell everybody in the world? Or did you do it fairly quietly and just sort of ghost at the end of the day? And if you're needing to rebrand, part of it is recognizing what caused you to do it in the first place and the ramifications that were left behind. Because if you're rebranding and you're going to a new organization, that former employer that you quit with is the one that's going to be your reference, and be recognizing how that affects your own personal brand.
And how about employers? What can they do to rebrand their image and their company's image after they've quietly fired someone?
Well, I have a pretty strong opinion of this, being a business consultant and coach myself, is they've been very quiet about their leadership. And so I would ask them to look at what they're selling as leaders. And why didn't you address this? Why did you allow someone to just be quietly fired? Why didn't you actually call out the behavior and give coaching or help or assistance or leveling up their skill set versus kind of taking a bit of a coward route and just making their life miserable until they left?
Yeah. So going back to the employee side for just a second, why should you intentionally create your personal brand in the beginning stages of the hiring and interviewing process?
So you're selling yourself anyways. And it's funny because that's such a term where people say sell yourself, but they forget the operative word is sell. So you're already selling something. You already have a personal brand. Whether it's on purpose or not is completely up to you. So if you're starting your career or rebranding, recognize what you're selling, and is it what you mean to be letting people know about you? Is your brand something that you are wanting them to reflect on you when you're not in the room? And look at some of those traits and make sure that you're bringing those forth. Make sure that you're selling them day in and day out, especially if you're at the beginning of an organizational role.
And then what are some tips that you might have for employers to better sell their company brand during these interviews and make sure everyone is aligned on expectations right from the start?
So I think that's what one of the things are that leads to quiet quitting is we oversell what the expectation of the role is to begin with. And so then people are like, wait a second, what did I get myself into? And then they realize they can't keep up. So I believe that leaders and organizations have an obligation during the interview process. It's a two-way street. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. Set those expectations very clearly that, hey, on paper, we come to work from 9 to 5 here, but we actually work from, 7 to 7. And are you good with that? And if you're not, make sure they know that so that as you're selling them on coming to work here, you know what you're getting as well, so that everybody actually benefits at the end. And it's not a surprise to anyone.